All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Safer Arizona, Arizona's Cannabis Legalization Webcasting Network. I'm your host, David Stephen Wisniewski.
And I'm Tom Dean, attorney for Cannabis.
Thanks for coming on the show, Tom.
Oh, it's great to be here as always, Dave.
Well, tonight we have a great show for you. Apparently, there's been 6 marijuana bills filed at the Arizona State Legislature. Allegedly, we have 3 marijuana legalization bills headed towards the ballot, and we're going to tell you where to sign the Smart and Safe initiative. All that and more coming up. But first, we had an awesome weekend at the Earl Cup. Y'all go to the Earl Cup? I don't know if they can answer me. I was at the Earl Cup.
Yeah, we were both there. For those of you who did make it, you probably saw us. We had a table set up. We were collecting signatures for Smart and Safe, as well as providing a lot of other useful information to passersby.
That was my first Earl Cup event I'd ever been to. I was quite impressed.
It was amazing. Hats off to Jim Morrison, the guy behind the Earl Cups. Did an absolutely amazing job. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I've been to High Times Cannabis Cups, and this, in my opinion, was every bit as impressive.
Really?
Yeah. I remember, I can tell you specifically, I was at one in San Bernardino a few years ago, and it also was an outdoor event, and I don't see how in any way that was any more impressive than what they did there at the Earl Cup this year. So if all you who did go there, you know I'm telling you, I'm shooting it straight. For those of you who didn't go, I highly recommend you look into the other Earl events coming up here later this year.
Well, we were out there doing a couple of things. First and foremost, promoting Tom Dean, attorney for Cannabis. I mean, I don't know any other attorney who goes out there and does cannabis exclusive cases like you do.
Well, I mean, you know, I love doing it, and I have been doing it for a number of years. Of course, I've been involved in criminal defense now for 26 years, and I've done everything from, murder to shoplifting and everything in between. But for the last few years, I decided to focus all of my efforts and my experience in education and knowledge, specifically to represent people, to help people who are charged with cannabis, marijuana-related offenses, as well as doing some in the area of business in the medical marijuana industry.
Well, we appreciate your service as an activist to the community. So let's talk a little bit about these bills. Now, I was talking to Michael Weiser, the director of NORML, over at the Capitol. I think it was yesterday. He was having a rally, and he was saying last year there was something like 30-something bills put in regards to marijuana. So it says 6 right now, but I think we can expect a lot more. So I'm going to run down these real quick just in case y'all aren't following along with the bills because they're sometimes complicated and confusing. We have HB 2178. This bill would allow the state to expunge and erase records of those arrested for marijuana possession. What do you think about that? I was confused by it because marijuana is not technically legal without a medical card. Why would they be expunging records?
Well, it doesn't have to be legal to expunge. Expunging the records is really the purpose is to, put the person in a position of not having a criminal record after having done whatever's necessary to, so to speak, pay his debts to society, whatever that means within the context of a marijuana.
So you paid your debt, now you can get deleted?
Yeah, you've paid your fine,
Control,
you've done your
Alt,
community
delete,
service.
Task manager, delete task.
And now it's removed entirely from public record. So right now, you get a conviction there, it sits on your record forever here in Arizona. The best you can do is have it set aside, but it still appears on your public record. It just says that the judgment's been set aside, which obviously isn't as good as having it completely eliminated from the record so that nobody can see it, because even convictions that have been set aside, sometimes employers, for example, they'll still hold that against an applicant.
Yeah, I had my marijuana charge dismissed with prejudice or without prejudice. I don't know which one it was, but the state didn't see it, but the federal government could still see it. Is that anything similar?
It could be, but this should have the effect of removing it for all purposes. Now, there's no accounting for the FBI database, which is what most employers, that's the comprehensive multi-state database. Despite receiving an order to remove the conviction, you can't necessarily force the FBI to do that, so there's a possibility still that it would show up on a federal criminal background, but certainly here in Arizona it would not. And if the FBI did what they're supposed to do, they would also remove it from their records as well.
Well, this next one sounds pretty good. HB 2049.
Well, can I say one other thing though about that expungement?
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off, but just that I'd like to note that whether or not I hope that this passes the expungement. I hope it makes it to the floor for a vote. But if it doesn't, fear not, because the Smart and Safe initiative, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more detail here coming up, contains its own expungement provision that would have the effect of expunging anyone's conviction for possessing 2.5 ounces or less of marijuana. And does that also apply to the 6 plants, I think, as well?
Yes, I read the 6 plants. I didn't see it
I'm not
apply
sure
to the
about
concentrates,
that, but definitely, yeah, definitely with possession cases would be expunged. So a step in the right direction.
All right. So HB 2049 would add opioid use disorder and autism spectrum disorder to Arizona's list of qualifying conditions for medical marijuana.
Definitely would be appropriate. I mean, certainly the amount of evidence that is accumulating showing that marijuana, the use of marijuana is effective in getting people off of opioids is just more and more every month. There seems like there's more evidence of that, both anecdotal and controlled studies. So the time has definitely come to allow marijuana use for people who are otherwise, depending on and hooked on using opiates primarily to regulate, obviously to medicate for chronic pain. So this should be a no-brainer. Autism, I think there's a good deal of evidence that I've seen presentations on this, that it's very helpful in preventing and mitigating the symptoms of autism. So, and that gets into some much more complicated science, but the evidence is definitely there.
Next, we have SB 1015. This bill would ban federally banned pesticides from being used to cultivate marijuana in Arizona.
What do you think about that one?
I think that is good to not use pesticides. I understand cannabis doesn't always need pesticides. People can use things like bugs. Ladybugs, I think, is one of the things that people are using as opposed to pesticides. And these pesticides that people use on crops generally, I think, are eaten. I'm not sure that these same pesticides that have been used are designed to be smoked. And then we have this weird thing popping up, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, that I have only recognized since the industrialization of marijuana, and it leaves me suspicious that pesticides might be the culprit to people feeling sick from smoking marijuana. I would argue smoking pesticides is probably not good for you.
I think as a general statement, it's hard to believe that wouldn't be true. This has been a problem that's plagued marijuana consumers for a long time. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, some of you who were around back then might have heard of the word paraquat, which is what the government used in an effort to eradicate marijuana. But the problem was that it didn't necessarily kill the marijuana, but it would coat it with this very poisonous substance that then cannabis consumers would then bring into their body, and it did cause illnesses. So I would have to say that's an herbicide technically, because the idea was it would kill the plant. But pesticides and herbicides, similar in that they are a toxic agent, obviously toxic to organic life, and so I would think ingesting it in any form is a bad thing. So I absolutely think that we need to have better controls over that.
Next, we have HB 2173. This bill would add electronic smoking devices such as vaporizers to the Smoke-Free Arizona Act, which would ban vaporizers from indoor use just like cigarettes.
Now, this is an interesting, I wouldn't include this in a cannabis-related bill because it has nothing to do with marijuana. The Arizona Smoke-Free Act is very specifically and very clearly limited to only tobacco-related products. So this would only impact someone's ability to use a vape pen to consume tobacco products unless, and I haven't read this bill word for word, unless it specifically extends the Arizona smoke-free law to include smoke and vape coming from cannabis-related products. So I'm not even sure that this is properly included, but a lot of people don't understand that difference. But yeah, the smoke-free is not smoke-free; it's tobacco smoke-free.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, moving forward, according to ArizonaMarijuana.com, Arizona now has 3 marijuana legalization ballot initiatives, and we're going to kind of clarify what's going on there. As far as I understand, there is the Smart and Safe Ballot Initiative. There's the Arizona Cannabis Justice Act.
Smart and Safe is the, let's just introduce who's behind that.
Right.
So Smart and Safe is, well, the Strategy 360 is a campaign management company, but this is essentially, am I correct in saying, an Arizona Dispensary Association sponsored initiative?
Right.
So it's an industry sponsored initiative, Smart and Safe.
Not the whole industry, because we also have the Arizona Cannabis Chamber of Commerce
touche.
with that third option.
Right, and so that's also, unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but it's a misnomer to refer to that as an initiative, because it's not. It's a what's called a legislative referral, and that it means that that campaign is attempting to convince the legislature by vote in the legislature to place on the ballot in November a legalization measure that you can vote up or down. But it doesn't require the collection of signatures like the Smart and Safe is a ballot initiative. So it's not technically a ballot initiative; it's a legislative referral. But yeah, it's also a lot of people in the industry. But interestingly, unlike Smart and Safe, if I may, Smart and Safe, which is sponsored by the Arizona Dispensary Association. The Arizona Dispensary Association is exclusively made up of members who are license holders in the medical marijuana dispensary industry. Only dispensary license holders can be members of the ADA, but the chamber is made up of anyone pretty much who's involved in the industry.
I think they even have cryptocurrency as part of one of their members.
So in other words, they're the people that are behind that effort are not just dispensary license holders. So so it is an industry, but a broader section of the industry.
So again, we have the Smart and Safe Initiative. Additionally, we have the Arizona Cannabis Justice Act. They filed their initiative in January of 2019. They've been collecting signatures for over a year, and according to their website, has just over 3,000 signatures, and they need 237,000 signatures to make the ballot. So it doesn't look like the Arizona Cannabis Justice Act is on track to make the ballot. However, the Smart and Safe Initiative has reported they have over 150,000 signatures. Of that 247,000 signatures, it looks like the Smart and Safe campaign is on track to make the ballot. So we got 2 ballot initiatives collecting signatures and 1 legislative referral. And the legislative referral is kind of similar to the Smart and Safe Initiative, but the license structure is a little bit different. So I'm not too confident that we're going to get a whole lot pushed through our legislature. So we have these bills. I'm not whole confident that lots of these are going to get passed. Historically, we've had people putting these bills for marijuana legalization, Mark Cardenas, Ruben Gallego, and they always die with a swiftness. So that's the only thing that I can expect to happen with another marijuana legalization bill or anything going through our legislature. Did you know that Doug Ducey canceled or somehow undid in 2015 for patients the ability to have your insurance pay for your medical marijuana?
Yes. Yeah, that, yes.
So with something like that, that's the mentality of the people in our legislature. How awesome would that have been if your insurance could pay for your medical marijuana?
Yeah, you're right, though. I mean, it was really amazing. I think it's getting better. I mean, we did get the testing bill passed.
And some of these are promising looking. You know, I'm kind of a little optimistic just to see some of these.
I think, 3 years ago, I would say none of this has any chance. But with last year, we had the testing requirement where medical marijuana dispensaries now have to do testing beginning this year. And also we had the license, the patient registration now lasts for 2 years instead of 1 year, but at no additional cost. So in other words, in effect, they cut the cost of a card in half over the objection of a lot of prohibitionists.
Patients. So, maybe it is evolving, but I'm still kind of scarred from all the things that the legislatures try to do to hurt patients. I've seen when Prop 205 made the ballot, they attacked our Constitution to enforce strict compliance. And I think there's a handful of other things. They tried to tax the Phoenix dispensaries out of existence like a year and a half ago. So over and over and over again, I'm just scarred from all these beatings. And so when I see something like this, I'm like,
I think if you
it's
want,
going to happen.
Yeah, if you want, I think we're not there yet for the legislature to actually produce and vote on and pass a measure of legislation that legalizes marijuana, even if it's in the form of a legislative referral that ultimately gives the voters the final say on whether it should pass. I don't think we're there yet. I love that we have the Arizona Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. I love that they're in there doing that, because I think that the more we're having serious conversations with lawmakers, the more that some of these other bills have a better chance of getting through.
It'll wear at them over time, hopefully.
And I don't think in the other initiative, which is the Arizona Justice League initiative, very idealistic. A lot of what's in there is where I hope one day we end up in the state of Arizona. But I think we're many years away from getting there. And that is a grassroots kind of consumer activist-based initiative with very little funding. And without funding, it is pretty much impossible to get a ballot initiative on the ballot. The signature collecting.
We tried.
Yeah. I think Safer Arizona set a record in 2018, collecting 75,000 signatures entirely on volunteer effort. So that I think was quite remarkable, but that's about as good as you could ever expect to do. And that only collected about half as many signatures as Safer Arizona needed.
Well, I'm proud of every volunteer that helped, whether they collected a signature or shared a link. It was all good stuff. It all helped, and it expanded the movement and pushed the movement forward.
It did, and congratulations on that, Dave. That was a very good effort, and I hope that we're going to talk a little bit about 2024, because I think we're going to have another bite at the apple, Safer Arizona. But what I'd also like to point out is that if the Arizona Cannabis Chamber of Commerce legislative referral does make it on the ballot, then I highly urge everyone to vote yes. In fact, I think you should vote yes to any legalization initiative that's currently in play if it makes its way to the ballot. Rather than pick and choose, we don't want to split the vote. Historically, if that happens,
on everything,
nothing passes. So the answer is vote yes on everything, and then let the chips fall where they
everything may. Marijuana, not all bills, or
right? Everything,
all initiatives.
Everything everything that reforms the marijuana laws, you should vote yes for. Reforms them in a way that reduces penalties faced by consumers. So in both of those initiatives, do that. All three of the measures do that. So if any of them make it on the ballot, vote yes.
Well, a lot of people would like to know where to sign this smart and safe initiative. ArizonaMarijuana.com did a story suggesting that you should call your local dispensary and ask if and when the smart and safe initiative will be collecting signatures out front, because a lot of them
that's one way, I guess.
We're collecting signatures out front. However, we have here at this facility the smart and safe initiative, so you can come on down to Tom Dean's law office 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. That's 14040 North Cave Creek Road, Phoenix, Arizona, and sign the petition. We've got some petitions here. We've got notary here, but supplies are limited. So I'm not sure how long these petitions are going to last here, but I'm sure we could probably get more. Also, if you follow Michael Weiser, the director of NORML in Arizona, that guy is running around in circles all over Arizona with these petitions. And if you could find him, he has petitions you could sign as well.
And he made a prediction, didn't he, about how many signatures he thinks he's going to get?
Oh, yeah. So right now they're at...
what did he...
I think he had a quote here in one of these. It was the Arizona... Oh, yeah. The most widely accepted initiative is the Smart and Safe Act. It would allow people 21 and older to possess, use, cultivate marijuana. They said a modest 16% tax would be placed on marijuana sold to be determined recreational dispensaries in Arizona. A tax revenue would fund education, infrastructure, and public health. And then we have a quote from Michael Weiser.
What did he say?
He's like, I'm expecting 400,000 signatures.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's true. So keep up the good work, Mike. We love what you're doing out there.
They need 237,000 valid signatures. They're trying to get 400,000 because a lot of them are not going to count for one reason or another. So, in conclusion, I'm not too faithful with all these bills. I like what I see in some of them, but our legislature has been historically kind of anti-cannabis, but maybe enough time has passed to where we might get something a little bit better.
I think we may. I think if I had to predict, I'd say that the medical marijuana bills, adding autism and opiate, how do they refer to it? Opioid use disorder. I think that that has a realistic
why not?
chance.
Like, why not? I want to hear the arguments why not, and then I just want to throw tomatoes at them.
And I know that I'd like to say that the expungement measure has a good chance of passing, but I know that there are some lawmakers who are of the opinion, I don't know why, but that somehow an expungement law would be unconstitutional. And I don't know why they say that. Many states have expungement laws. Arizona actually has an expungement law, but it's a very limited, that's only available to a very narrow number, a very small number of cases. But there's nothing that I can tell that would make that's unconstitutional about an expungement law. So, I mean, I don't know. I think, though, for whatever reason, there's a sentiment like that in the legislature, so that might cause a problem for that initiative.
And then there are 2 ballot initiatives, one likely to make the ballot, and there's a legislative referral that is not likely to make the ballot. However, whatever makes the ballot that's pro-marijuana, we suggest voting yes on all of it. Mm-hmm. Last but not least, if you want to sign the petition, the Smart and Safe Initiative, come on down to Tom Dean's law office. Again, that address is 14040 North Cave Creek Road, Phoenix, Arizona. Tom, do you have anything else to say before we conclude this broadcast day?
Well, I'd just like to say that if there's anybody out there who is in the unfortunate situation of having criminal charges or criminal investigation going on and you need help, please reach out to me. You can contact me through my website at attorneyforcannabis.com or call me at 602-635-4990. And if you do that, you get, and you mentioned that you came here through the Safer Arizona broadcast today, that's a 10% discount on all legal fees.
Nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, this was Dave Wisniewski.
Tom Dean.
And Tom Dean, attorney for cannabis. Thanks for watching.
All right.